I know how this sounds. Mannequins aren't supposed to move. They're lifeless, decorative, soulless plastic figures designed to show off the latest sales rack garbage. But I swear to you, something followed me home. And it's not human. Let me back up a bit. I walk home the same way every evening, left at the gas station, past the laundromat, then down Melrose until I hit my building. Routine, comforting even. Except for one thing, the old department store on the corner of 8th. It used to be a big deal decades ago. Now, it's just a boarded-up relic with flickering neon and dust-choked glass. Most of the mannequins inside were either knocked over or missing limbs. Until she appeared. I noticed her last Tuesday. One mannequin, standing upright in the front display. Too clean, too perfect. Waxy skin, almost glowing in the dirty light. Her pose was stiff, arms straight, feet together, head tilted slightly like she was studying me. But it was the eyes that did it. They weren't painted. They were glass, shiny, wet-looking, too lifelike to ignore. They didn't look out of the window. They looked at me. I laughed it off at first, told myself it was nothing. But the next night her pose had changed. Her head was straight now, and her right arm was bent, just slightly. So subtle I almost missed it, but I didn't. I stopped, stared. Something crawled across my skin. I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture, just to prove I wasn't going insane. And then I looked at it. She wasn't in the photo. Everything else was there. Dusty shelves, broken props, even the cracked glass. But the mannequin, gone. I looked up again. She was still standing there, right in the center of the display. I didn't take another photo. I just walked, fast. The next night I tried not to look, kept my head down, told myself to stop feeding the paranoia, but my eyes drifted anyway. And this time, her hand was pressed against the glass, palm flat, right where my face was. I didn't stop, didn't blink, just kept walking. But the rest of the way home, I could feel it, like something was following me. Not behind me, inside me. And that night, I swear I heard tapping on my window. 3 soft knocks, just like fingers, thin ones. That night I didn't sleep. I tried. I really did. I left a lamp on in the hallway, closed my blinds, turned on some white noise, but I still heard it. 3 soft taps against the window. Then again, my apartment's on the 3rd floor. There's no balcony, no fire escape. Nothing outside that window except 20 feet of open air. At 3:17 a.m., I got up and pulled the curtain aside. Nothing there, just the empty street, flickering amber from the streetlight below. But for some reason, I couldn't bring myself to open the window. Something in my chest clenched, like if I opened it, something would be waiting, breathing, watching. The next morning I laughed it off, told myself I was overtired, spooked from too many horror podcasts. I even joked about it at work. I think I've got a haunted mannequin situation going on. Everyone laughed. I laughed too. But it didn't feel like a joke. That evening, I took a different route home. Avoided the store completely. Took the long way. An extra 4 blocks just to give myself peace of mind. It didn't work, because when I opened the door to my apartment, something was off. Nothing major, just subtle. My keys weren't where I left them. My coat had been moved, still on the hook, but twisted as if someone had tugged it. The chair at my kitchen table was slightly pulled out. I live alone. No roommates, no pets, no explanation. I started wondering if I was losing my mind. Maybe it was stress or some kind of breakdown. Maybe I just wanted something, anything to explain why I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I told myself I was being dramatic, that I probably left it that way. But when I went to bed, I put a chair in front of my door, just in case. It sounds dumb, I know, but it made me feel better. For a while, I dreamed about her. In the dream, I thought I heard something. A whisper, a name, maybe. Emily. It barely registered, like background noise. But it stuck with me. The mannequin. She was in my apartment, standing in the kitchen under the pale yellow light, motionless, hands at her sides, head slowly turning toward me, inch by inch. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. No sound, no breath. Just that empty, hollow expression. When I woke up, the chair was moved. It was still near the door, but shifted, turned about 30 degrees, like someone had nudged it aside gently to step through. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't in my head. Later that day, I walked past the store again, against my better judgment. I told myself I needed to see, needed proof that this was just anxiety. But the store was sealed up, metal shutters, padlocked, graffiti tagged. No light inside, no mannequin, no anything. It was like it had never been open, like I imagined the whole thing, except I didn't. Because that night, when I came home, she was across the street, standing under the broken street light, still, silent, and exactly as I remembered her. Same tilt of the head, same waxy skin, same impossible glass eyes. I stood at my window, phone in hand, trying to convince myself to call the police. But what would I say? "Hi, officer. There's a mannequin stalking me. She was in a store window. Now she's following me. Could you please arrest her?" I didn't make the call. I just watched as the streetlight flickered, buzzed, and then went out. When it came back on a few seconds later, she was gone. The next night I didn't sleep. I didn't even try. I kept every light in my apartment on, sat in my living room with a baseball bat in one hand and my phone in the other, 911 already queued up, just in case. I even dragged my full-length mirror out of the bedroom and faced it toward the front door. I don't know why. Maybe I just wanted a way to see behind me. By 2:45 a.m., nothing had happened. And then, my hallway light flickered. Once, twice, then out. Total silence. I stood up, waited. That's when I heard it. Not the tapping this time. Not the window. Something heavier, dragging. A slow, deliberate shuffle across the floor above me. Only, I live on the top floor. My chest tightened. I held my breath, ears straining. The sound came again. Drag, pause, drag, pause. Then it stopped. I crept toward the door, every instinct in me screaming to stay still, stay quiet. But I needed to know. I opened the door just a crack, just enough to peek into the hallway. Empty, but something was there, pressed flat against the far wall across from me, a dusty imprint, humanoid, as if something had stood there for hours, unmoving, dust clinging to the shape of shoulders, and a face. I slammed the door, locked it, double locked it, moved the couch in front of it. I wanted to run, book a hotel, sleep in my car, something. But I was scared that if I left, she'd follow, and worse, she might not wait for me to come back next time. Sat in the corner until sunrise. When the morning finally came, I told myself it had to be a prank, a weird, elaborate trick. Maybe someone found an old mannequin and was messing with me. So I went to the leasing office downstairs, asked to see the hallway camera footage. They said the cameras were down. Something about wiring. Maintenance was already notified. Of course. Back upstairs, I noticed something new. When I passed by the hallway mirror, something felt wrong. My reflection was delayed, like it blinked a second too late. I chalked it up to nerves, but then I saw it. A single, pale fingerprint on the inside of my bathroom mirror. It wasn't mine. I hadn't even been in there yet. That night I left every light on again, sat in the same spot, but this time I dozed off, just for a minute. And when I woke up, she was standing in my hallway, not moving, not breathing. Just there, no sound, no footsteps, nothing. She was posed like she always was, arms down, feet together, head ever so slightly tilted. But this time, there was something in her hand. My phone. I hadn't even realized it was missing. I couldn't scream, couldn't speak. I just stared at her while my lungs forgot how to work. Then, she blinked. Not a big motion, not dramatic, just a soft, unnatural flutter of the eyes. I scrambled for the bat, swung wildly, but she was gone. No crash, no footsteps, no door slam. Just gone. The only thing left behind, a faint trail of dust leading back toward my bedroom and on my bed. My phone sitting perfectly in the center of the pillow, unlocked, camera open, gallery full of new photos, all of me, sleeping, and in every single one, she's there in the background, getting closer. I couldn't stay in the apartment after that. I packed a duffel bag in 10 minutes, left everything else behind. Laptop, clothes, even my toothbrush. I just wanted out. I crashed on my friend Marcus's couch, told him I was dealing with a stalker situation, which wasn't a total lie. He didn't ask too many questions, just handed me a beer and told me I could stay as long as I needed. I slept better that first night. No tapping, no blinking plastic eyes, no dragging noises, but I still dreamed. The mannequin was in Marcus's living room now, standing between the couch and the TV. She didn't move, didn't speak, but the tension in the air was unbearable, like gravity thickened around her. When I woke up, I was soaked in sweat, and Marcus was sitting across from me, pale and silent. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded slowly, then said, "Man, I think someone was in the apartment last night." I froze. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. I thought it was a shadow. It was just standing by the window. I figured it was you at first, but it didn't move. And when I blinked, it was gone." He tried to laugh it off, but he didn't look convinced. Neither was I. That day I dug deep, started researching the department store. It took hours, but I finally found something. I remembered something strange from a few nights earlier. In one of my dreams, someone whispered a name. Just once. Muffled and distant. It sounded like M. I thought it was nothing. Now, I'm not so sure. Back in 1993, there was an accident during a store remodel. A night shift worker was found dead in the display room. Cause of death was never released. The weird part? They found her posed. Some claimed the worker was found smiling. Others said there was no body at all. Just a new mannequin in the window the next morning. Her name was Emily Delane, 24, no known family. It was like she had been swallowed by the store and never let go. Some even say the store used to change displays overnight, without staff, like it was alive. One janitor told a reporter he quit because the mannequins moved when the lights flickered. No one believed him, until Emily vanished, arms at her sides, head tilted, eyes wide open, just like a mannequin. I even found an old grainy photo attached to the article. The body was censored, but the shape, the posture, it was her. I slammed my laptop shut. That night I didn't sleep at Marcus's. I booked a cheap motel across town under a fake name. I left my phone off, covered the bathroom mirror. I even sprinkled a salt line across the windowsill, the base of the door, and around the bed. I don't know why I thought it would work. I must have drifted off. One moment, I was staring at the ceiling, and then something shifted. The air thickened, my ears popped, like pressure changed. When I opened my eyes, everything had changed. My motel room was gone. I was back in my apartment, but it wasn't mine anymore. The walls were covered in faded department store wallpaper. The window was spotless, framed by display lighting. My furniture had been replaced with a red velvet bench. A spotlight hummed above me, and across the room, behind a glass pane I'd never seen before, was me, standing perfectly still, arms at my sides, head slightly tilted, wearing the exact clothes I'd worn to bed. But I wasn't moving. I wasn't blinking. And the version of me still sitting in the corner, that one started to fade. My skin felt heavy, limbs frozen in place, breath shallow and slow. It wasn't a dream. She hadn't just followed me home. She'd brought me into her world and made me part of the display. I don't know how I got out. 1 second, I was staring at my own frozen body across the room, posed, spotlighted like a mannequin in a window. The next, I was outside, back on the street. No memory of running, no shoes on my feet, just cold pavement and headlights. So I left the city that night, didn't go home. I checked my phone once, thought about calling Marcus, but the only thing in my text thread was a photo. Him, fast asleep on his couch, and just behind him, she was there, head tilted, watching. Didn't call anyone. I just walked until I found a 24-hour bus station and boarded the first outbound coach I could afford. Destination didn't matter. I just needed distance. There were 10 other passengers. Everyone kept to themselves, except for the man across the aisle who kept staring at me. Not in a creepy way, more like concern. "You okay?" he asked softly. I nodded. But inside I wasn't, because I hadn't told anyone what scared me most. She had taken my reflection. Since the motel, mirrors don't work right. I look into them, and it's me, yes, but not really. The expressions are off. Movements are delayed by just a second. Sometimes my reflection smiles when I don't. I haven't looked into a mirror since. The bus rolled through the night. I tried to sleep, but the hum of the engine kept giving way to something else. A soft plastic creak, that familiar sound, the sound of her moving. I opened my eyes. She was there, 3 rows up, standing in the aisle. No one reacted. She didn't move, just stood between the seats, posed perfectly, like she belonged. But something felt different. Her posture, her outfit, the slight slump in her shoulders. It wasn't exactly her anymore. It looked like me. Was that still the mannequin? Or was that what I looked like now? I closed my eyes tight, told myself I was hallucinating, sleep deprived, traumatized, that if I opened them again, she'd be gone. I opened them. She was now 1 row closer. I bolted from my seat, heart slamming against my chest like a trapped animal. I ran to the front of the bus and told the driver I needed off. He glanced at me in the mirror and said, "What girl?" There was no one there. I got off at the next stop anyway, some nameless town wrapped in fog and silence. I didn't even wait for sunrise. I checked into a cheap motel. Again, I didn't sleep. I couldn't, because the room already had signs she'd been there. The bed was turned down. The mirror was draped with a sheet, and on the desk, facing me perfectly straight, was an old department store name tag. Emily. I never knew her name until now. The rest is harder to explain. It's been 3 days. I don't think I've eaten. I don't feel tired. But I haven't moved. Not really. My arms won't lift anymore. My legs feel heavy, stiff. When I breathe, it sounds like wind moving through an empty bottle. Shallow, hollow. I sit in the corner of the room now, watching the door, waiting. Not for her, for someone else. Because last night I saw my reflection in the window. Only it wasn't just watching. It smiled and stepped away. Without me. I think I'm fading, or freezing, or turning into something else entirely. A display, an exhibit. I don't even feel fear anymore. Just stillness. Perfect, quiet stillness. If someone finds this recording, don't come looking. Don't try to help. I should have never stopped to look. That first night, when she was just a figure behind glass, I should have just kept walking, because she's not just a mannequin. She's a vacancy, an empty shape that needs to be filled. And I think she finally found someone to take her place. Me. And now, outside the glass, people pass by. They don't stop. They don't see me. But I see them, and every once in a while, someone looks a little too long, and I feel it again. That first twitch, that first tilt of the head, like the next one, is almost ready. And maybe this time, I'll be the one watching from behind the glass. It was 3:03 a.m. I remember, because my phone buzzed just as I was about to give up and close my laptop. Another night, another failed attempt at finding a job. I'd been unemployed for 3 months, scraping by with odd gigs and late-night surveys that paid in gift cards. Rent was due in 4 days, and my bank account was gasping at $26.17. The ad shouldn't have even existed. It was on a message board I hadn't used since college, a dusty corner of the internet that felt like it belonged to another era. There it was, nestled between posts about vintage speakers and old conspiracy threads. $500 cash, 1 night, watch Unit 13. That was it. No phone number, no company name, just a set of GPS coordinates and a time, 11:45 p.m. I stared at it for a long moment, then clicked refresh. The post remained. I don't know what compelled me. Maybe it was the $500. Maybe it was the way the number 13 sat so perfectly aligned beneath the timestamp, like it was meant for me. Or maybe it was because desperate people do stupid things. I sent a reply, half expecting it to bounce. Instead, I got a confirmation within seconds. Confirmed. Arrive promptly. Do not be late. No name, no signature, just those 5 words. The facility sat on the edge of town, past the shuttered gas stations and forgotten warehouses. Easy storage looked abandoned. Rows of dull red doors stretching into the dark like ribs of a rusted carcass. The only working streetlight flickered overhead, casting long, jumpy shadows across the cracked asphalt. Beneath that light stood a man. At least I think he was a man. He was tall, too tall, and thin in a way that made his proportions seem wrong, like a mannequin that had been stretched. His long coat fluttered slightly even though there was no wind. He didn't speak right away. He just watched me approach, with a stillness that felt like pressure against my skull. "You're early," he said eventually. His voice was soft and melodic, but beneath that smoothness, something echoed, like 2 voices speaking at once, just slightly out of sync. "Mr. Velas?" I asked, even though he hadn't given a name. He smiled, or at least his mouth moved in a way that suggested smiling. "Midnight until sunrise, that is all. The unit is paid through the century. You're just insurance." Then he pressed something into my hands, bolt cutters. The handles were cold and rough, and rust flaked off them like dead skin. "Unit 13 is at the back," he said. "Do not enter it, no matter what you hear." I blinked. When I looked again, he was already walking away, long strides that didn't match his frame. Within seconds, he was gone, swallowed by the dark rows of units. The further I walked, the quieter everything became. It was as if the night itself was holding its breath. My footsteps echoed against the concrete, bouncing off the metal doors on either side. I passed units numbered 1 through 12. Each was closed tight, padlocked and unremarkable. Then I saw it. Unit 13. The door was different, warped inward, like something had slammed into it from the outside or the inside. The paint was scraped away in long vertical gouges. Something had chewed on the padlock, not scratched or cut, but chewed with teeth. I swallowed hard. There was an office chair nearby, dusty but stable. I dragged it over, positioned it facing Unit 13, and sat down. Midnight was less than 10 minutes away. I pulled my jacket tighter and glanced at my phone. No signal. Of course. I looked back at the door. Something about it felt alive. The dents almost formed a pattern, like veins or scars, and if I stared too long, I could swear they pulsed. I shook my head and blinked hard. Just the shadows, just nerves. Then the clock struck 12. The first hour passed with nothing but silence. I tried listening to music, but even with earbuds in, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was listening to me, watching. Every creak of my chair felt like an invitation for something to respond. At 1:17 a.m., the knocking started. 3 raps. Slow, deliberate. I froze. My playlist had ended 10 minutes ago, and in the absence of sound, the knocks cut through the quiet like hammer blows. I stared at the door. The padlock trembled slightly, like it had flinched. 3 more knocks. I stood up, phone flashlight trembling in my hand. I considered calling someone, but there was no signal, and even if there had been, what could I say? Hi, yes? I'm being haunted by a storage unit. I took a shaky breath. Hello? My voice cracked. It echoed slightly. Nothing. Then, don't answer it. The voice came from my left. I turned so fast I nearly dropped my phone. The voice had come from Unit 12. Its door was sealed with heavy chains, thick enough to hold an engine block in place. It had been silent when I passed it earlier. Who's there? I asked. Don't let it out, the voice said again. It was female, weak, and frayed with age or fear. No matter what it promises. I backed away from Unit 12, nearly tripping over the chair. My legs ached to run, but my curiosity was louder. 3 more knocks, this time louder. And then the whispering started. The whispering came not just from Unit 13, but from all around me. Faint voices slipped through the cracks of locked doors, too low to understand. But every few seconds, one phrase, repeated, clear as day. He always picks the desperate ones. I spun in circles, flashlight darting from unit to unit. I expected someone to leap out. Nothing did. Who are you? I shouted toward Unit 12. Silence. Please, I said, my voice smaller this time. Tell me what's going on. A pause. Then, I used to be the insurance. My stomach dropped. I stepped closer to Unit 12. The chains rattled as if pulled taut from the inside. Why are you locked in? Because I stayed. The voice sounded exhausted, like a whisper from someone who'd screamed too long. I thought I could handle it. I thought if I just lasted until dawn, I'd be fine. The padlock on Unit 13 thudded again, not from knocking this time, but like something bumped into the door or pressed its weight against it. What's in there? I asked. Another pause. Then, it's not just a what, it's a they. Something old, hungry, clever. More whispering filtered in around us. Some were crying, others laughing. I began to realize the other units weren't empty, or maybe they had never been storage units at all. They make deals, the woman continued. Promises. They'll offer you anything. But the moment you believe them, they feed. Then why do they let people go? I asked. They don't. They wear you like a mask. You become the bait. I staggered back. I should go, I said, more to myself than her. You won't, she said. None of us ever do. I sat back in the chair and stared at the bolt cutters in my lap. My fingers ran over the chipped, red handles, rust flaking beneath my nails. Don't. Every rational part of me begged. Run. Now. But the whispering never stopped. They weren't angry whispers anymore. They were coaxing, luring. My name slipped between, syllables spoken like a lullaby. I heard my sister's voice, dead 10 years, giggling the way she used to when we played hide and seek. You can see her again, one of the voices promised. My throat tightened. My hand moved before I consciously made the choice. The bolt cutters clinked against the lock. I hesitated. Then the knocks came again. 3. Sharp. Urgent. I squeezed the handles. The metal screamed, a groan that cut through the air like a wounded animal. The padlock burst open and clattered to the concrete. Silence. Even the whispering stopped. I reached forward and placed my hand on the door handle. It was warm. Then it opened on its own. Darkness spilled out. Not like light receding, but like something alive had been holding its breath and had finally exhaled. The flashlight in my hand dimmed. The beam, once strong, flickered weakly as if the darkness was swallowing it. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of wet earth, copper, and rot. But there was something sweet too, sickly sweet, like overripe fruit left to ferment in the sun. The concrete floor inside wasn't concrete anymore. It pulsed beneath my boots, soft and spongy like living tissue. I stepped inside, 1 foot, then the other, and the air grew warmer. Not temperature warm, but intimate, like being inside someone's mouth. The walls were slick, organic. Fibers shimmered just beneath the surface, like veins or tendons, twitching at my presence. The corridor twisted, spiraled, made turns I couldn't understand. I should have been 10 feet deep, but the walk went on for minutes. Then it spoke, not aloud, but in my head. You brought the key. I stopped. My thoughts weren't my own anymore. They ran parallel to something else, like a shadow overlapping mine. Shapes moved in the walls, hints of limbs, faces pressing outward like something buried just beneath the surface, begging to be let out. Their eyes never blinked. At the far end, something unfolded, not stood, unfolded from the dark. It was vaguely human, but wrong. Its arms were too long, joints bent the wrong way. Its skin sagged like wax over bones not meant to exist. Its face, God, its face was almost beautiful until it smiled. Then it split, not horizontally, but vertically, the mouth opening from chin to crown, revealing rows of teeth like polished stone. "We've been waiting," it said, Mr. Valus always finds such good helpers. I couldn't move. Every instinct told me to run, to turn back. But my body didn't listen. My feet stayed planted. My hands trembled at my sides. The creature took a step closer. Each motion looked painful, like its limbs hadn't been made for walking. Behind me, the entrance to the unit was gone. Not closed, gone. Replaced with solid, pulsing wall. The creature tilted its head, the smile never fading. It studied me the way a collector studies a coin. "You have the shape," it said. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out. Instead, a warmth spread through my skull, like someone pouring syrup into my brain. "We remember hunger," it whispered. "But you bring memory, regret, pain, flavor dot." It reached toward me with one impossibly long hand. Its fingers bent in too many places, clicking softly as it touched my cheek. Ice and fire surged beneath my skin. My mind thrashed. I saw flashes. My sister, smiling as we built a pillow fort. The day I lost her. Me, signing the lease I knew I couldn't afford. The ad, the bolt cutters, the door. "Yes," it said, "you remember so well." I fell to my knees. The ground beneath me breathed. I swear it inhaled. Around me, the walls trembled. Faces emerged from the slick flesh, dozens, maybe hundreds, all sunken-eyed, all screaming, all me. Then the scream turned inward. I wasn't on my knees anymore. I was watching myself on my knees, from a corner of the room, and then from another, and another. They were me. I was becoming them. The creature leaned in, its voice now inside every part of me. "Don't worry," it whispered. "You'll get used to the knocking." They found my phone 3 days later, duct taped to the ceiling of the facility's office. The last video on the device plays automatically whenever it's turned on. In it, I sit in the office chair outside Unit 13. I'm smiling. My skin looks pale, waxy. My eyes don't blink. "Mr. Valus was right," I say to the camera, my voice just slightly wrong, like someone else is echoing me from inside. "It's easy work once you get used to the sounds. Would you like to apply?" Behind me, something tall and thin shifts in the shadows. The video ends with 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I've never handled silence well. Not the kind that comes when the world is asleep and the shadows stretch longer than they should. I'm talking about that deep, unnatural silence, the kind that presses in from all sides, making your ears ring until you start imagining things that aren't really there. Even as a kid, I hated being alone in tight spaces. Closets, crawl spaces, even elevators made me sweat. My chest would tighten, and I'd feel like the air was thinning, like the walls were inching closer every second. My parents thought it was claustrophobia. I thought maybe I was just weird. But it wasn't until I got older that I realized something was wrong. Deeply wrong. There was always this fear, buried beneath everything else. A fear I couldn't explain. Like something was coming for me. And it would come when I was completely helpless. Buried, maybe. Trapped. Forgotten. My grandfather used to say strange things when he thought no one was listening. He was quiet most of the time, lost in his own world. But every now and then, he'd say something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "One of us," he mumbled once, rocking slowly in his chair. Gets buried alive. Every other generation. That's the curse. It's always been that way. I asked him what he meant, but he just looked past me, eyes clouded with something heavy. He never answered. I tried to forget it. I told myself he was just old, confused, that it was some creepy family superstition or a tale he made up to scare me. But I didn't forget. I couldn't, because not long after that, I started having dreams. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, my heart hammering. In the dreams, I was lying in a small, wooden box. There was no light, no sound, just my own breathing. Fast, shallow, desperate. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. All I could do was wait. And then there was the knocking. That's the part I still can't explain. For months, I'd hear it at night. 3 soft knocks, like someone tapping on the wall just behind my headboard. I lived alone. No one else had access to the apartment. I checked every time and there was nothing there. No loose pipes, no tree branches, just the knocks. I told myself it was stress, that I was tired, overworked, imagining things. But that didn't explain the dreams. It didn't explain the cold that seemed to seep into my bones every time I heard those knocks. I started to wonder, what if my grandfather was right? What if the curse was real? And what if it was meant for me? I started digging through some of my grandfather's old things not long after he passed. Part of me felt guilty. The man had barely been buried when I found myself in his attic, surrounded by trunks of dusty clothes, moth-eaten blankets, and old, curling photographs. But something kept pushing me up there. A pull I couldn't explain, like there was something I was supposed to find. At first, it was just the usual junk. Faded army memorabilia, a few handwritten letters in cursive I could barely read, a cracked watch with a name engraved on the back, someone I'd never heard of. But in the very bottom of a cedar chest, beneath layers of flannel and brittle newspaper clippings, I found a leather-bound journal. The pages were yellowed and stiff, and the handwriting inside looked shaky. My grandfather's. It started innocently enough. Notes about the weather, what he ate, a dream he had. But then the tone shifted. He started mentioning the fear, the way the house would grow colder around midnight, the knocking, always the knocking. He wrote that it started when he was 27. That's the same age I was when I found the journal. He described the exact same dreams I'd been having. The coffin, the darkness, the helplessness. He wrote that his own grandfather had warned him about the family curse, just like he'd warned me. He hadn't believed it either, not at first. But it haunted him, followed him, took things from him. He mentioned an incident when he was 30, when he collapsed during a work shift and was declared dead for several minutes. He wrote that he woke up in the morgue just before they were going to embalm him. The technician had stepped out for a smoke. He managed to kick the drawer door open enough to make a noise. Just enough. Barely enough. I remember reading that line over and over again. Just enough. Barely enough. I didn't want to believe it. Who would? It sounded like the ramblings of a man slipping into senility. But there were newspaper clippings in the chest. Real ones. Dated and yellowed, but legit. One mentioned the incident. His name was there. He had actually been reported dead. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the doctors got it wrong. Maybe it was one of those medical flukes where someone flatlines for a few seconds and then comes back. Maybe that was it. But deep down, I knew. It wasn't a mistake. It was the curse making its first move. The knocking got worse after that. It started following me. Not just in my apartment anymore. I heard it when I stayed over at a friend's place, in a hotel room during a business trip. Once, in a bathroom stall at the airport. Always 3 knocks, always faint, but never ignorable. I started losing sleep. My appetite vanished. I kept seeing shapes in the corners of rooms, faces in mirrors that didn't quite match mine. People at work noticed. My boss called me in for a wellness check, said I looked pale, said I seemed distracted. I quit the next day. I couldn't be around people. I couldn't fake it anymore. I went back to my grandfather's house, sat in the attic with his journal and read it, cover to cover again. The final entry stuck with me more than anything else. It was short, and I could tell his handwriting was weak, like his hand had been shaking. Still knocking. 37 years now. I think it's waiting. Waiting. That's what I couldn't get out of my head. Not coming, not attacking. Waiting. But for what? The next night, I dreamed of a funeral. Mine. I watched the whole thing as if I were floating just above the casket. My mother sobbed. My brother stood stiffly in the corner. No one knew I was still alive inside the box. I could see myself lying there, eyes closed, unmoving. But I felt it, the urge to scream, to move, to do anything. But my body just lay there while everyone said goodbye. And then I woke up, breathless, and the knocking started again. This time, it wasn't behind the wall. It was coming from the floorboards, directly under my bed. I didn't sleep the night after I heard the knocking under my bed. I couldn't. I just sat in the corner of the room with my knees pulled to my chest, the light on, eyes glued to the floor like it might crack open at any moment. I kept telling myself it wasn't real, that maybe I had finally lost my grip, that this was just stress, exhaustion, or maybe a lingering echo of my grandfather's madness. But it felt real, too real. I didn't go back to my apartment after that night. I packed a bag and checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town. Something about the beige wallpaper and the constant hum of the vending machine down the hall made me feel safer. It was temporary, but I needed space, distance, something to break the rhythm. The first night at the motel was calm. No knocking, no dreams. I almost started to believe it was all in my head. But then, the second night, I saw something. It was around 3 a.m. I hadn't fallen asleep yet. I was staring at the ceiling, counting the stains, trying to keep my thoughts from spiraling. I turned my head toward the small window, and for a moment, I thought I saw movement outside. There was a figure, standing completely still, no expression, just watching. At first, I assumed it was a drunk or some random weirdo off the highway. I sat up, heart pounding, and pulled the curtain aside. But when I looked again, there was no one there. The parking lot was empty, silent, not even a car driving by. I chalked it up to paranoia, but the next morning, I found 3 shallow scratch marks running down the glass, as if someone had dragged their nails slowly across the window during the night. I didn't report it. I didn't want to explain. What would I even say? That a ghost or a curse was stalking me through motel windows? Instead, I moved rooms, then motels, then cities. No matter where I went, it followed. The knocking, the figure, the dreams, always the same. Me, locked in a coffin, screaming with no sound, scratching at the wood until my fingers bled. Sometimes I'd wake up with my nails bent back or blood on my fingertips. I didn't remember doing it. I started wearing gloves to sleep, just in case I was hurting myself without realizing it. I avoided mirrors. I stopped answering calls. I stopped replying to texts. I was unraveling, and I knew it, but I couldn't pull myself back together. Eventually, I returned to my hometown. I was out of money, out of energy, and dangerously close to believing my fate was already sealed. My grandfather's house was still empty. I had the keys. It felt wrong to go back there, like I was walking into a trap. But I had nowhere else to go. When I stepped inside, the air felt thick, stale, like the house hadn't breathed in months. I made my way upstairs and stood in the attic doorway, the journal still sitting where I'd left it. Only now, it was open, and the final page, the one where my grandfather had written that chilling line about the knocking waiting, was torn out. That's when I started feeling like something was living in the house, not with me, inside it, in the walls, the vents, the shadows that pooled in the corners after dark. I'd hear footsteps in the hallway when I was in the attic, the creak of doors opening slowly when I was trying to sleep. Sometimes I'd wake up with the blanket tucked tightly around me, so tight I couldn't move. I lived alone, and always, the knocking, never random, always 3, always, right before I lost consciousness. That's when I realized something awful. It wasn't a warning anymore. It was a countdown. It was the 3rd night back in my grandfather's house when I collapsed. I remember bits of it. I had been pacing the living room, talking to myself, trying to piece together every strange incident like a puzzle that refused to fit. The knocking had happened again the night before, this time under the couch I was sleeping on. I dragged the whole thing across the room and searched beneath it with a flashlight. Nothing. No signs of tampering, no cracks in the floorboards, no vermin. Just a cold, dense feeling, like the air had weight, like something was sitting just beneath the surface, watching, waiting for me to fall asleep again. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. My head felt like it was full of smoke. When I finally collapsed, it wasn't dramatic. No screams, no panic. I simply crumpled in place like a marionette with its strings cut. I came to some time later in an ambulance. The paramedic said I was lucky. Said my vitals had flatlined for almost 2 minutes. Said I must have had a heart episode, likely from stress, dehydration, maybe exhaustion. They told me it was a miracle I came back. But it didn't feel like a miracle. It felt like something let me go. I was admitted for observation. The hospital room was bland, quiet, sterile. I thought I would feel safe there, surrounded by people and machines, but instead I felt like a guest inside my own body. Like something was off, Something had changed. The second night in the hospital, I dreamt I was buried again. But this time it wasn't a dream. I could feel the fabric of the hospital gown against my skin. I could smell antiseptic. I heard voices, faint, blurred, speaking about me, not to me. Then those voices faded and I was underground again. But this time I wasn't alone. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel a presence, pressed up beside me in the box, breathing slowly, shallowly, matching my every inhalation. I couldn't speak, couldn't scream. I just lay there, paralyzed, while whatever it was shared the coffin with me. I don't know how long it lasted. Hours, maybe minutes. Time didn't work right in that place. All I know is that when I finally woke up, I couldn't move my limbs. I could see, I could hear, but I couldn't move or speak. The doctors called it a temporary episode of sleep paralysis, but I knew better. It wasn't sleep. I had been somewhere else, and something had been there with me. After a few days, they discharged me. My vitals were normal, no signs of long-term damage. They prescribed some pills for anxiety and told me to focus on recovery. I didn't go back to the house immediately. I wandered instead, drifting between cheap motels and late-night diners, trying to avoid sleep. But it didn't help. The dreams followed. The knocking got louder, louder and closer. And one night I saw my own face. I was brushing my teeth in a hotel bathroom. I looked up into the mirror, and there I was, of course, pale, tired, hollow-eyed. But then I blinked, and the reflection didn't. It just stared. Its lips parted slightly, not in surprise or speech or mimicry. It smiled. A slow, sickly curl of the mouth that didn't belong on my face. I dropped the toothbrush. When I looked again, the reflection was normal. I haven't looked into a mirror since. I don't think that thing in the dream left me. I think it's still with me, still inside me. And whatever's knocking, it's not asking to come in anymore. It's asking to be let out. I don't remember the accident, not the impact, not the sound, not even the moments leading up to it. One minute I was driving, miles from town, trying to clear my head, thinking that if I just kept moving, whatever was haunting me couldn't keep up. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in a drawer. I couldn't see anything at first. Everything was dark and cold and still. The air was metallic and tight, like it had already been used up. Then came the pressure, weight on my chest, a stiffness in my limbs like rigor mortis had already begun to claim me. I realized I was lying on my back, completely flat, and surrounded by hard surfaces on every side. My thoughts scrambled, panicked, clawing for an explanation, and then it hit me. I was in the morgue, the drawer. My breath caught in my throat, not because of fear, but because my lungs wouldn't cooperate. My mouth was slightly open, but I couldn't form words, couldn't cry out. My muscles wouldn't move. My hands were locked in place. My legs felt like they were tied down, though I knew they weren't. I wasn't dead. I was paralyzed, buried not in dirt, but in cold metal, Some distant part of me remembered hearing about it once. Lazarus syndrome. Autoresuscitation. The body can appear dead for a short while, then restart on its own. Rare. Rare enough that morgues aren't trained to expect it. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. I don't know how long I was in that drawer before someone opened it. But I do remember the moment it happened. The light seared my eyes, and the sudden burst of fresh, icy air flooded into the space around me. A face appeared, blurry, shocked. A technician. He dropped his clipboard. I couldn't speak, but I was awake. Very much awake. They rushed me back into the hospital. Tests, monitoring, whispering nurses and wide-eyed doctors circling my bed. Words like miracle and unbelievable kept getting tossed around. Someone asked if I had a history of seizures. Another asked if I was on any medications. Nobody had answers. They just kept looking at me like I wasn't supposed to be there. Legally, I had been declared dead at the scene of the crash. No heartbeat, no response. Covered with a sheet and tagged. Sent off like a package nobody wanted. But I was here now. Alive. They kept me overnight again. This time I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the drawer around me again. I felt the silence pressing in, the cold metal kissing my skin. I kept expecting to wake up back in it, as if my return to life was just a delay in the process. I overheard one nurse whisper to another that the morgue had already prepared my body for the coffin, that the funeral home had even been contacted. They had almost buried me. Almost. It felt like a delay, not a rescue. As if something had tried to claim me and missed, just barely. When they finally let me go, I didn't go home. I couldn't. Something had changed in me. The dreams were different now. I wasn't watching from inside the coffin anymore. I was watching from outside, watching myself, watching the lid close, watching the dirt pile high, watching until the grave was full. And when I woke up, the knocking didn't come from under the floor or behind the walls. It came from inside me, a steady, rhythmic thudding in my chest, as if something inside wanted out. I don't remember falling asleep the night it happened. I don't even remember lying down. All I know is that when I opened my eyes, it was dark again. Not the soft dark of night through a window. Not the flickering dark of a television left on in a motel room. It was complete, swallowing, airless. My arms were pinned to my sides, my legs straight and stiff. There was a smell, old wood, glue, varnish, sweat, the scent of something sealed shut. I tried to move. Nothing. I tried to scream. Nothing. Just like in the dreams. Only this wasn't a dream. I felt it in my throat. That choking, burning weight of panic pressing down. My mouth wouldn't open, and no sound came out. I was locked in. My eyes adjusted to the pitch-black nothingness and still saw nothing. Just the void of an enclosed space. Then I felt the pressure, first in my chest, then in my ears. Vibrations, voices, above me, muted, indistinct, but they were there. I heard the words, service, and gathering, and laid to rest. I heard crying, My mother's voice. My brother trying to hold it together. It was my funeral. They thought I was dead. Again. No mistake this time. No drawer to pop open. No technician stepping away for a cigarette. I was already in the box. They were going to bury me. I don't know how my body fooled them. Maybe my vitals dipped again. Maybe the doctors were just tired of explaining me. Or maybe this thing, the curse, whatever it was, had gotten better at making me look dead. This time, it had almost succeeded. I felt the shift, the subtle tilt as the coffin was lifted. My body jolted ever so slightly. Then came the slow descent. They were lowering me into the ground. There was a quiet moment, an awful, reverent pause before the dirt started to fall. I couldn't hear it. I could feel it. The weight pressing down from above. Thin layers at first, then heavier, faster. Each shovelful slamming into the lid with a dull thud that made my bones rattle. I begged myself to move. Just one muscle, a finger, a toe, anything. But I was frozen in my own flesh, screaming behind sealed lips. That's when I remembered what my grandfather had written in his journal. 3 knocks. That was the only signal he ever managed. The one thing that saved him. I gathered everything I had left. Every ounce of will. Every drop of strength. And I forced my hand to twitch. Then curl. Then rise. It scraped wood. My fingers bent awkwardly but found resistance. And I knocked. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then silence. I waited. Nothing. More dirt. More weight. The coffin groaned with the pressure. I knocked again. 3 more times. Still nothing. I was going to die here. For real this time. Buried in silence, knowing no one could hear me. But then I heard a shift. Not inside the coffin. Outside. A voice. Far away. Then another. Shouting. The sound of feet. Frantic. Urgent. I knocked again. Harder this time. My knuckles burned. I knocked like my life depended on it. Because it did. And then I felt it. The coffin trembled. Something thudded against the top. A spade, maybe. Then again, and again. Louder, faster. A burst of air, light, and a face above me. Terrified, wide-eyed, mouth trembling. A man, covered in dirt, reaching down with shaking hands. Then I was out, dragged into the light like a corpse reborn. They told me I was lucky. Again. They used that word like it meant something. Like being pulled from your own grave by a fluke of timing and noise was some divine mercy. But I didn't feel lucky. I felt like something had gone wrong. Like death had reached out, gripped me tight, and somehow I slipped through its fingers. They ran tests, brain scans, blood work, psych evaluations. They couldn't explain it. No trauma to my body, no damage to my organs, just some light dehydration, minor bruising on my knuckles, and an elevated heart rate that never really settled down. I didn't tell them what happened. I didn't explain how I was aware the entire time. How I felt the dirt, heard the sobs, knocked until I bled. They wouldn't believe me. Hell, I barely believed myself. And yet I knew. Every second of it had happened. I hadn't imagined a thing. My mother refused to speak about it. She cried when I came home. Then she went quiet, like a part of her didn't believe I was really there. Or worse, believed I was, but shouldn't be. I stayed in the guest room for a while. I tried to pretend things were okay, that I could start over, that I'd escaped. But I hadn't. The knocking followed me home. At first, I told myself it was just echoes, trauma reverberating through my brain, phantom sounds, residual dread. But then I realized the pattern was the same. Always 3 knocks, always around the same time. Midnight, give or take a few minutes, just like before. It was different now, though. The knocking wasn't coming from under the bed or behind the walls. It was coming from inside the house, from inside me. I'd feel it when I was alone, a thud in my chest, like my heartbeat wasn't mine anymore, like something else was beating along with it. I started counting them. 3 thuds, then silence, then 3 again. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night gasping for breath, unable to move. My body stiff, like it remembered the coffin, like it was preparing to go back. I stopped sleeping. I stopped eating. I stopped talking to anyone, because no one wants to hear this story. No one wants to believe it's possible to be buried alive twice. And no one wants to know that the fear never leaves you. Not when you wake up, not when you're rescued, not even when you're standing in the sunlight. I started writing everything down, just like my grandfather, just in case, because now I understand. It's not a curse that ends. It's a cycle. He survived it. I survived it. But that doesn't mean we escaped. We were marked, tagged by something that doesn't care about medicine or miracles. It's not about death. It's about being trapped, and about how many times you can be dragged back under before something finally keeps you there. The journal sits on my nightstand now, half filled. My handwriting grows worse with every entry, like my body's slowly letting go, like I'm becoming something else. I hear the knocking every night, and now I knock back, not to be saved, not to be found, but to let it know I remember, that I'm not done fighting. But I also know, one day soon, I'll knock, and no one will answer, and that'll be the last thing anyone ever hears from me.